The sun was dipping below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over the manicured lawns of Crestwood Estates, a quiet suburban community nestled in the heart of Georgia. For 78-year-old James Carter, a wiry black man with a gentle smile and hands weathered by decades of hard work, this place had been home for nearly 2 decades. Every morning, like clockwork, he'd shuffle down the path to the community pool, his faded green swim trunks swaying slightly with each step. The water wasn't just a luxury, it was his lifeline, easing the ache in his joints from a lifetime of labor as a mechanic. But that morning, everything changed. I'd gotten a call from Grandpa James just after dawn. His voice, usually steady and warm, trembled over the line. "Elliot, they put a notice on my door. Orange, big letters. Says I can't use the pool anymore." I could hear the confusion, the hurt threading through his words. I don't know what I did wrong. I was in my car within minutes, the 40-mile drive from Atlanta blurring past as my mind raced. By the time I pulled into Crestwood, the sight of that garish orange paper taped to his faded blue front door hit me like a punch. Pool access revoked. Violation of community standards, it declared in bold, accusing print. Inside, I found Grandpa slumped in his old recliner, staring out the window toward the pool shimmering faintly through the pines. His hands, resting on the arms of the chair, shook slightly as he handed me the notice. "I've been swimming there every day for years, Elliot," he said softly, his deep brown eyes searching mine for answers. "Yesterday, that new HOA, Lady Brenda, something came by while I was in the water. Said my trunks weren't proper. Said I was making folks uncomfortable." His voice broke on that last word, and I felt my chest tighten. Grandpa James was the epitome of dignity always had been. Those green trunks, a gift from my late grandmother, were his uniform of quiet pride. The idea that they'd offended anyone was laughable, but I knew what was really going on. Crestwood was mostly white, and Grandpa was one of the few black residents in this corner of the neighborhood. Brenda Hayes, the newly elected HOA president, had been on a crusade to refine the community since she took over 3 months ago. Her standards were just a flimsy excuse to push out anyone who didn't fit her narrow VY shown. I didn't tell Grandpa what I suspected or who I really was. To him, I was just Elliot, his corporate-climbing grandson who VY cited too rarely. He didn't know I was the CEO of Horizon Holdings, the real estate conglomerate that had quietly bought Crestwood Estates 8 months earlier through a shell company. It had been a low-priority acquisition, a sleepy investment I'd left to the property managers while I focused on high-rise developments in the city. But now it was personal. "Don't worry, Grandpa," I said, folding the notice and slipping it into my pocket. "I'll handle this." The next morning, I drove to the community center, a squat brick building adorned with neatly trimmed shrubs and a sign proclaiming Crestwood Estates HOA. I dressed down jeans, a plain polo, no need to reveal my hand just yet. Inside, Brenda sat at a long table with 3 other board members, a stack of violation notices spread out like a battle plan. She was in her early 50s with sharp cheekbones, a blonde bob that didn't dare move, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Excuse me," I said, stepping forward with the orange notice in hand. "We need to talk about this." Now, Brenda's gaze flicked to me, irritation flashing before she plastered on that practiced smile. "Oh, you must be Mr. Carter's grandson. How sweet of you to step in. But the rules are clear, pool attire must meet our updated standards." "And what standards are those?" I asked, keeping my tone even. Years of boardroom negotiations had taught me to bury my anger beneath a calm exterior. She waved a hand dismissively. "The ones we passed last week. It's all in the newsletter. We're elevating Crestwood to a higher caliber." I caught a twitch from one of the board members, a wiry guy named Paul in a golf shirt who shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Can I see the documentation?" I pressed. The policy, the vote, the resident notification. Brenda's nails perfectly painted coral tapped the table. "It's all been handled properly. Susan, get him the policy sheet." A mousy woman handed me a single page, typed in a rush with no letterhead or signatures. Swimwear must adhere to appropriate community standards of length and style, it read. The vagueness was deliberate, a blank check for Brenda's whims. This is awfully vague, I said, holding it up. How do you define appropriate? We base it on community feedback, Brenda replied, her smile tightening. Your grandfather's attire has caused complaints. Who complained? I shot back. Her eyes narrowed. We keep that confidential to protect privacy. There haven't been any complaints, I said flatly. You're singling him out because he doesn't match your idea of who belongs here. The room went still. Paul stared at his shoes. Susan fidgeted with her pen. Brenda's face flushed a shade that clashed with her pastel blazer. That's a bold accusation, Mr. Carter, she said, her voice icy. We enforce rules equally. Paul cleared his throat. Brenda, we didn't actually vote on the pool attire thing. You just announced it. Her glare could have melted steel, but I didn't linger to watch the fallout. I had what I needed. Over the next few days, I dug deeper. I drove through Crestwood, chatting with neighbors under the guise of casual concern. The stories piled up like kindling. The Lopez family fined for a piñata at their daughter's birthday. Mrs. Kim cited for hanging red lanterns during Lunar New Year. Old Mr. Grayson, who used a cane, denied a ramp for his porch steps. Then I accessed the HOA records through Horizon's management portal. In 3 months, Brenda had issued 52 violations, 47 targeting elderly residents, minorities, or families with kids. The pattern was a neon sign. I called my executive team that night. Move up the Crestwood re-VYEW, I told my VP, Lauren. Get the ownership docs ready. And bring in the lawyers, I want a full audit of the HOA. Lauren hesitated. Elliot, we weren't planning to reveal Horizon's stake until the expansion next year. Plans change, I cut in. This ends now. That evening, I sat with Grandpa on his porch. He looked frail, his usual spark dimmed. Folks don't talk to me the same, he murmured, gazing at the pool where a group of kids splashed carefree. Like I'm the problem. I squeezed his shoulder. You're not the problem, Grandpa. I promise. The next week, white envelopes stamped with Horizon Holdings logo appeared on every doorstep in Crestwood. Mandatory community management re-VY EUHOA board attendance required, they read. Brenda called Grandpa's house that afternoon, and I picked up. This is a waste of time, she snapped, not bothering with pleasantries. Tell your grandson to drop it. The pool decision stands. See you tomorrow, Brenda, I replied coolly. Don't be late. The morning of the meeting, I found Grandpa on his porch, watching a water aerobics class all white, all laughing while he sat sidelined. 3 weeks without his swims had worsened his arthritis. He winced as he stood, leaning VYLY on his cane. We faced this nonsense our whole lives, he said quietly. Me and your grandma thought it'd be better for you kids. It will be, I said, helping him inside. Then I made a call. Lauren, push everything up. We're doing this today. An hour before the meeting, I sat Grandpa down in his leave VYing room. There's something I need to tell you, I began. His eyes widened as I laid it out me role at Horizon, our ownership of Crestwood, and what was about to happen. You bought this whole place? He asked, incredulous. It was a good investment, I said with a grin. But now it's about more than that. He shook his head, a faint smile breaking through. You don't have to fight my fights, Elliot. You fought enough for me, I replied, thinking of the overtime he'd worked to help fund my college. This one's mine. The community center was packed when we arrived where it had spread like wildfire. Brenda sat at the front table in a crimson blazer, her board members fidgeting beside her. She stood as I walked in, Grandpa leaning on my arm. What is this? She demanded. Who called this meeting? I did, I said, settling Grandpa into a front row seat. You have no authority here, she snapped. This is adjourned. Actually, I said, opening my briefcase. It's just getting started. My team filed in Lauren, our lawyer Tom, and the property manager Greg. The air shifted as the crowd sensed something big. Brenda's voice climbed. This is outrageous. Let me introduce myself properly. I cut in, stepping forward. I'm Elliot Carter, CEO of Horizon Holdings. 8 months ago, we acquired Crestwood Estates through our subsidiary, Pinnacle Levying. The room gasped. Brenda's face went white, then red. That's impossible. The HOA runs this community. Within the framework set by the onerous, I said, nodding to Tom. He handed out folders, deeds, contracts, proof of ownership. The board serves at our discretion. Brenda's hand shook as she flipped through the papers. Even if this is true, our charter, Section 7, Paragraph 3, I interrupted. Policy changes require documentation, submission to the management company, and approval. Your standards don't meet that threshold. I turned to Greg. Any record of a pool attire policy? Greg coughed. No, sir. Nothing official. Brenda stammered, but I pressed on. I've reviewed the complaint logs. No issues with my grandfather's swimming. But I did find a trend 47 of your 52 violations targeted specific groups. Elderly, minorities, families. Sound familiar? The crowd murmured. Brenda shot up. This is a takeover. The residents won't stand for it. I finished. Applause broke out. People stood, sharing their own run-ins with her rules fines for noisy kids, bans on tacky decorations. Paul spoke up, voice shaky. Brenda said these were board decisions, but we didn't vote on most of them. She claimed executive power. No such power exists, I said, sliding the bylaws across the table. You've turned this place into your personal fiefdom, targeting anyone who didn't fit your mold. Brenda clutched her purse. I protected property values. Diversity tanks prices, everyone knows that. The room froze. She clapped a hand over her mouth, but the damage was done. Actually, I said, data shows diverse communities hold value better. But this isn't about numbers, it's about people. I laid out a final document. Effective immediately, all unapproved policies from the last 3 months are void. We're auditing the HOA's records, and the board's being restructured, new elections next month. I looked at Brenda. Your tenure as president ends now. Your access to HOA resources is revoked. She grabbed her bag, sputtering. My lawyer will. Check Section 12 on discrimination. I called as she stormed out. We've got 19 documented violations ready for court. Grandpa tugged my sleeve. Pool time. I grinned. Let's go. The next day, I moved into a Crestwood condo to oversee the transition. The change was electric. Neighbors mingled, Grandpa's swim group swelled, and the community garden bloomed with new volunteers. A month later, as we sipped lemonade on his porch, MOVYing truck rolled up. Brenda was Leah VYing, her glare cutting across the street. Grandpa raised his glass in a mock toast. She turned away, defeated. Best part, he chuckled, flexing his hands. Swimming's kept me limber. Poetic, ain't it? The guy she tried to sink owned the whole damn sea. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.